needs to be re-evaluated to serve the needs that the plan determines. It has to go across the board in the city in all of the departments and all of the objectives of what you're working toward, starting with the dollar allocations. So if that doesn't happen, there won't be measurable items.
Great point, thank you. I just want to come here and then over.
And my question was about how, is this a city project? Are we thinking the city's going to do this? Because it looks to me like this is an opportunity to identify ways for all the sectors to integrate. Because most of what you talked about last night is exactly what NDSU is working to do for the institution, and I guarantee you private sector wants these things because they want to recruit the best and retain the best. So integration across the sectors seems like a really important point to highlight.
Yeah, absolutely critical. And so, by law, cities have comprehensive plans. So at the end of the day, there are some things that happen that make it a city document. But we haven't seen a plan be successful without it being integrated across sectors, kind of back to where we started today. And it's encouraging to hear you say that there's that much alignment. And it was clear that kind of collaboration could be really helped through this planning process, and that there was a lot of room to be even better, to help and there are a lot of projects that help everyone simultaneously. So it's really critical that NDSU is at the table and stays involved.
Was there some thought of private sector being at this group?
What's that? I'm sorry.
Was there some thought of having more private sector representation in this group?
Maybe that's probably a question for Jim.
Well, we do have, I don't see Craig here, but Craig Whitney with the Chamber, obviously, is we wanted to make sure that we've got that focus with the business community. I think Craig made an observation today that they would maybe host some meetings to try to get more involvement from the business community, but absolutely, I think we have to have that sector included.
I think we may step back and reevaluate and add half a dozen players or something at this point, and I could see last night that would have been wonderful to have some of those people at some of those roundtables.
Yeah, another one you might consider is some social media advocate, because I mean there were folks there that have been pushing the site really, really hard, and it's clear that they were turning people out, and that having somebody here who was maybe even doing a blog or a tweet, running tweets or whatever, it'd be a good resource. So I think the composition of this group is really up to you guys, and we'd be wanting to make sure that it is representative. Okay.
I just wanted to, Steve's point about basically, I think he's talking about the opportunity cost. There's a certain amount of money that's available. We got a $200 million budget. And so when we're kind of weighing these priorities and looking, like transit funding's a good example, I think. Right now, I don't know what, we don't dedicate a lot of our general fund dollars to transit. We could allocate more from our road funds instead of building more roads all the time. A portion of that could supplement transit. So there's money that's available. It's just a reallocation of resources. But I'm hoping that, and I think that's what Steve's talking about, is it's just evaluating what are the priorities and where do you get the best bang for your buck that match those priorities with and I think we may see that if we're more efficient, just like homeowners, they're going to save 25% on their cost of operations. The city might be able to do that, and there again we lead. Instead of government always getting more, you're just being more efficient.
To me, it's more than that. If the neighborhood portion, and strongly talked about last evening about the core, revitalizing these old neighborhoods, then the city has to, within its budget, begin to create stimuluses within those neighborhoods so that people will go back in. The talk has to be followed by action and dollar allocations to cause those things to happen. Transportation, if it's people need rides to places the buses don't go, then you better reevaluate the bus routes and make those kind of changes. That's the kind of things I'm talking about. You really, it has to become workable items out of this, or it isn't.
Right, and I think that's my point. Is the $200 million budget, of that $5 million, over $5 million is incentives that are chosen by us as to where we apply them. So again, then that gives this group a general idea. Okay, there's one portion of money that we have to direct, $5 million. What's the best use of that $5 million right now? is it being allocated the way that we want to? So it's not some money pie in the sky. That's why I think having at least a working knowledge of what the city budget's comprised of doesn't have to be in-depth, but some of those opportunities, like that $5 million that right now is directed pretty much across the board, we could target those and maybe use that money in a more strategic manner.
Bob?
I think at the first meeting we had talking about this, we talked about that this should be a young person's plan. I don't know if you remember that. I think Bittner made that comment that the one we did last time wasn't, you know, and we didn't really get much use out of it. And I think last night was just, I don't know, it was the most fun public meeting I think I've ever been to. And that was it wasn't because this just about 64-year-old guy was there, or Commissioner Wimmer with your scintillating personality. It wasn't you.
Thank you, Bob.
It was all these young people that were just unfiltered. That little, what was her name, Elise?
Elise.
Yeah.
Just what a treat she was, you know, and just willing to talk and see things. And then we sit here and we talk about having a plan that's integrated and you know, reasonable and workable. Well, that's reality. I understand that. That's reality. But the trick for you, Stephen, and your crew, I think in answer to this question, what should this plan accomplish? This plan needs to capture that youthful enthusiasm in a manner that Mike and Brad and Dave and the mayor and Dr. Mahoney can adopt. You know, something that works, that is practical certainly, but it has to be something that also meets the obligation we have to the energy component. It has to have that integrated into it. But I think, you know, and that doesn't sound like an easy job to me. It sounds like a great plan when we're done. But I think that's what you need to capture, is you need to capture that progressive and that progressive spirit and that excitement. But these guys have to adopt it and be able to use it as a tool.
Bob, it's got to sort of put a twinkle in every citizen's eye. It's got to, as she said, it's got to be genius. It's got to be something that everybody looks at and says, wow,
I've
there's some
Stephen
things
Hardy
in there.
referred to as genius. So.
Yes.
We're gonna take a vote on whether Wimmer's personality is scintillating.
It'll be our first act as a steering committee.
Is that a motion, John?
Well,
Acclamation.
one thing that we will certainly be doing is, well, first of all, I saw a lot of nodding heads while Bob was saying that, and I think we're on that path in a way that is unusual, and I would have anticipated when we started up here, and I think it's personally very exciting, and I think that's a great challenge for our team and for you as a steering committee. We will be working on prioritization. That's when things get really tricky, and that's down the road a little bit, but just to give you a sense of the way this usually works, it's vision, goals, strategies, prioritization, kind of in that order. And so we're going to be getting closer and closer to the tougher decisions. I also usually don't mention this yet in the process, but because there were a couple of points today about it, oftentimes the steering committee becomes the implementation committee after a plan's done. I should say oftentimes in successful plans. And so usually I don't mention it this early because people aren't ready for that kind of commitment. But you should be thinking about how this process carries on past the end of the plan, because it really is the process that gets this done, not the plan itself. So are there any questions in the last couple of minutes here? Okay, just a couple of housekeeping notes, and then I'll let Jim say goodbye to everybody. There are 5 total steering committee meetings. The next one is scheduled right now for August the 25th. One thing that we'd really also like to do is share with you the baseline reports once we get them cleaned up and all in relatively the same place. I think you'll find them very illuminating. It's not something you're going to get through easy. There's probably, 200, 300 pages of material, but you can kind of skim it. But you're going to have a much deeper sense, richer sense of what's really happening in your community. So it's been a real pleasure for us to be working with this group and this community, and we thank you, and we're looking forward to a really good next few couple of months. Jim?
I think Bob wanted to say a
Okay.
few words, so I'll...
Great.
I just want to underscore how unique this opportunity is for you. It's been mentioned several times, but I don't think we can be clear enough about this. First of all, it's the first time HUD has ever invested money in a master plan.
DOE, right?
DOE, yeah, sorry. And I think that's huge. And so you were already a national pilot before this website was launched. And this is the first, we use this technique a lot, this social media, and this is the first time we've seen 30,000 hits in this period of time. And that means there's an enormous amount of interest in this community, and it suggests that there's a lot of inertia and a lot of resource that you could capture going forward, depending on a few things. And one of those is leadership. And I'm sorry John's gone. I assume he's gone, is he?
I think he left, yes.
Well, I'm sorry to say this in his absence, but I'll say it anyway because I think it's important, and that is this is a comprehensive master plan. And from our point of view, we anticipated last night maybe not as many people being there as were there because it was a great, beautiful day, and you hadn't had one for a while. And so we were encouraged by the turnout, but I was stunned by the fact that you have 9 planning commissioners and not one present for the first community meeting discussing a new comprehensive master plan. And that's frankly unacceptable. And that has to change. And it's a signal to the community about leadership, too. They're there, but the planning commission is not there. And so that has to change. We were encouraged that the city commissioners did participate and are participating today, and that's critical as well. But it should be, from our point of view, it would be mandatory attendance, frankly, for the Planning Commission, and the fact they weren't there is a strong signal to the community. So it's your call, but we would encourage some energy invested in that area.
He'll be there at the next meeting.
We've all talked, and I think appropriately, about, so what is this plan, and does it have to be practical, and can we be sure it's going to be implemented and all that? And listen carefully what Stephen said. This part is not about being practical.